Hi, and thanks so much for joining with me today. I'm Anna Hellman, and today I want to share some tips for making the most of your mini embossing folders. Now, these mini folders have been designed to work with our mini cut and emboss machine, which is fantastic. If you want a little inexpensive machine that travels well and folds up nicely. But what if you want to use these mini folders for some larger pieces? Today I'm going to share with you 5 tips for how to make the most of these mini embossing folders, and make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to show you how to use them to emboss pieces of cardstock that are larger than the folder themselves without any annoying lines on the edges. And I'll also show you how to use them for a card front itself of the actual card. So let's get started. My first tip is pretty basic. It is nothing mind-blowing. Basically, just to use them for smaller strips of paper, okay? Your embossing doesn't have to cover the entire front of your card. It can be for a smaller piece that actually fits inside of this folder. So you can do that. You could trim these into several sections and put some panels on the front of your card. You can really do a lot with smaller pieces. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to use your mini folders with die cuts. So if you're doing this, you want to die cut your piece first, then emboss it second. That way the embossing doesn't get smashed when you run it through the second time if you were going to die cut second. So die cut first, emboss second. You can also use these with punches, of course. So with punches, you can either emboss first and then punch, or punch first and emboss. It doesn't really matter either way. But I did these with our elegant tag punch, which looks like you can only make one shape, but you can honestly make hundreds of sizes and shapes. So I'm going to link you to a video on this tag punch right here if you would like to take a look at that. So that's tip 3, is to use them with punches. Now let's get into the exciting business with embossing pieces that are larger than the actual folders themselves. So here is an example, and I created this one with one of the folders in the checks and dots set. So here's the dot, here's the check, and I'm going to show you right now how to do this, how to create your full embossed piece with no weird edges or lines with the smaller embossing folder. So I have a piece of cardstock that's the size of a card front. I am going to lay it inside of my folder over towards the edge, get it lined up straight. And to do this, you will need the larger machine, the larger cut and emboss machine. If you would like some information on this machine, this is a fantastic machine. I can actually link you to a video here about this machine. So I am using, this is one of our standard embossing folders, one of the thinner ones. So I'm using it with my clear plates. I can see where it lays. But if I were to do this with a 3D embossing folder, I would need my gray plate on top. I'll show you that here in just a minute so that you will see how that works. But what I am going to do is crank this just until the edge of the embossing folder is almost to the center of the machine, like the center of where this handle would be. I don't want that edge line to go all the way through. So when I know it's getting close to the center, I'm going to back it up and stop. And that prevents getting that strange edge line at the edge of your folder. I actually have an example here I can show you that may be a little bit tough to see, but right here where the edge of that folder was, there is a line there, and I just don't like that little line on my project. So that's why I practiced and came up with this way that you can create these without that extra line. So now what you're going to do is flip this around. You're going to have the embossed part hanging out the edge. You are going to have the not embossed part here inside of the folder. And what we need to do is line it up till the pattern meets. And you can usually feel it lock into place here. I feel that it has locked into place now. I'm going to close this. I'm going to look through the folder to make sure it still looks like the pattern is lined up over here on the edge. And I just shifted it, so let's get that back in place. Now I'm going to lay, again, the embossing folder goes through first. This extra cardstock stays back here and will not pass through because we're going to put it through part way again and then back it off. So I'll go until that edge of the embossing folder is getting close to the center of the machine, back it out. And we have our full piece of embossed cardstock with no strange lines or funny edges. So this does only work with uniform symmetrical embossing folders. If you have ones that have a different pattern all over them and it changes from one side to the other, you may not, you probably will not be able to use this technique with that. But for your symmetrical geometric ones, this works wonderfully. Now, that was tip number 4, and I have one more for you, which is how to use these folders on the actual front of a card. So with this technique, what it's going to do is emboss the full part of it over here on the right side, and then you're going to have that faded look. If you don't want to get that line here at the edge, we're going to give it a little faded look, which I think is really pretty on a card. So I am going to grab another embossing folder. I'm going to use a snowflake here. This is from the Wintry embossing folder set, the same one as this pine print is from. So this is one of our 3D embossing folders. So I am going to put base 1 down. I am going to put the edge of my card here in the edge of, or into the embossing folder. Now I need plate 4 on top, like I said, since this is one of our 3D folders. Now I have to watch here at the edge to see where the end of that folder is. When I'm using this gray plate, have to keep an eye on the edge because I can't see through it. And get this to go through straight. Now I see it's getting close to the center. I want to stop, cut out. And let's take a look at the results. So we have that beautiful snowflake print that fades as we get over here to the left. Now we can put a greeting on here, some ribbon, whatever else we want to add. But that is just a really pretty base for a card. So I hope you've enjoyed these 5 tips for how to make the most of your mini embossing folders. Thanks so much for joining in. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel using the button down below. Please like, comment, share, let me know what you want to see in my upcoming videos. And you can find links to all the products I've used today in the video description below. I really appreciate when you shop with me. So thanks for being here. I will see you again next time when I will be back helping you to hand make with love.